Historical Society will come forward as they are introduced and share with us some highlights of their years in office. At this time, I would like to introduce Betty Leech, who will present our first speaker.
We asked Mary Moffett to speak about the early years of the Historical Society and also for Bill Leech. Mary was Bill's secretary, as many of you know, on and off for 30 years, and she was involved in much of the early history of the society. Mary tried to get Bill to record the early transactions so we'd have records, but if she'd done that, it would have been an entirely 24-hour job a day. Mary served 2 times as president. She served as recording secretary, corresponding secretary, membership chairman, and on the board of directors. And while her husband Lonnie was a county engineer, he obtained the Bow Bridge and saw that it was put into place on the grounds of the Historical Society. The Bow Bridge in 1990 was listed on the National Historic Register. In looking through some of Bill's correspondence, he and Mary wrote to members. I was struck by the number of times that they said, "We're having a work day. Come and help." And you'd be surprised at the number who did come. But at the top of the list of those who were helping were Mary and Lonnie. I've seen them scraping, scrubbing, and contributing all kinds of labor and leadership. And I am very pleased to introduce Mary Moffett.
Thank you, Betty. I feel very humble after all of that. I think that we're supposed to be allotted about 3 minutes for our talks tonight, but since I'm speaking on 3 subjects, I should have 9 minutes. Time me. I think I can make it in 5. According to the March 1976 Jefferson County Historical Society Quarterly Bulletin, and I quote, "Through the efforts and sponsorship of William C. Leech, interest was stimulated among residents of the county toward the formation of a historical group to preserve the heritage of the past. Bill had held several preliminary meetings through the fall of 1965, which culminated in final organization of the society on January 26, 1966. Bylaws were approved at that time and the first officers and directors elected." Close quote. Articles of incorporation were filed February 10, 1966 with bylaws which state, "The purpose of this society shall be to bring together those people interested in the history of Jefferson County. Understanding the history of our community is basic to our democratic way of life, gives us a better understanding of our state and nation, and promotes a better appreciation of our American heritage. The society's major function will be to discover and collect any material which may help to establish or illustrate the history of the area, its exploration, settlement, development, and activities in peace and in war, its progress in population, wealth, education, arts, science, agriculture, manufacture, trade, and transportation." And the bylaws continue to spell out how this shall be done. As near as I've been able to verify, there were 94 charter members when the charter membership roster was closed in late July 1966. The first 3 annual meetings were at the Oskaloosa Public Library. The 1969 meeting was the first annual meeting of the present format, that is, business meeting, dinner, program, and exhibits, and rotating from one town to another in Jefferson County. This meeting was at the Oskaloosa Presbyterian Church, and there were 165 present. Bill Leech served as president in 1966, 67, 68, 69, 74, 75, and until February 76, when he resigned following a heart attack. During these years, work was commenced on a roster of location for old post offices, country schools, churches, towns, newspapers, railroad stations, and records of present or forgotten cemeteries. Incidentally, the latter project was later completed very professionally by the Genealogical Society. The Historical Society was instrumental in the placement of the historical marker on Highway 24 near Williamstown, commemorating the first white settlement in 1827, and in seeing the Union Block in Oskaloosa placed on the National Register of Historic Places. Quarterly meetings were established, historical items written and published in the county newspapers. A bus tour of historic sites in Jefferson County was enjoyed by members. Quarterly bulletins were prepared and mailed to members. A collection of early day photographs was begun, and much historical material and many items were either arriving at Bill's office or being offered to the Society. And somewhere early in the life of Jefferson County Historical Society, Bill began to think about developing a pioneer village to recreate the lifestyle of the 1880s. Bill and his wife, Betty Wright Leech, donated 4.5 acres beside Highway 59 in Oskaloosa. The gift was accepted August 21st, 1968. The deed presented June 26, 1969, and groundbreaking ceremonies for Old Jefferson Town were held September 18, 1969. You'll hear more of Old Jefferson Town tonight. It is mind-boggling to consider all that occurred during Bill's 6+ years as president, and I'm sure I've touched on only a part. During the 2 years I was privileged to serve as president, 1979 and 1983, the first thing I think of was the terrific cooperation and assistance of so many volunteers. The Extension Homemaker units enthusiastically responded to our request for hostesses for the buildings at Old Jefferson Town. And with their help and others, one year we had 138 hosts and hostesses, in addition to all the volunteers working with the Craft Guild, the Genealogical Society, the Art Guild, and other Historical Society members who went the extra mile. 3 other standouts in my mind were the payment of $10,000 on our $20,000 debt, the wonderful attendance at our annual meeting featuring Peggy the Flint Hills as speaker, and last but certainly not least, we were finally able to hire someone to mow the grounds, and Bill Rhodes no longer had to bring his equipment in from the farm to keep Old Jefferson Town looking decent. I've enjoyed my long years of connection with the Jefferson County Historical Society, and thank you all.
Thank you, Mary. Now I'd like to introduce Alita Manville to speak on behalf of Nelle Currie Manville.
Well, most of you probably know Nelle, and you have heard her song and dance at Old Jefferson Town. She had a tendency to get a little bit long-winded because she was so enthusiastic about her song and dance, what she's having to tell you about. She was very short-winded about this, so we'll see what we can do. Nelle Manville served as the second president of the Jefferson County Historical Society in 1970, 71, and 72. During that time, the rental store, the Edmonds Chapel, and the schoolhouse were moved to the grounds. Bill Rhodes, as building and ground supervisor, was largely responsible for the success of these moving projects. There was also much volunteer help, some of whom were Bill Rhodes' father, the Victor Edmonds family, Mary and Lonnie Moffett, Tom Gross, who gave untold hours of their time. Louise Barker and Virginia Voorhees also contributed research time and information from the book barn. She said that there were many others as well. She hesitated to mention anyone. These were just names that have stuck in her mind as being very helpful and always there on the spot when she wanted something done or when the society wanted something done. Some things that stick in Nelle's memory are that the Little Red Schoolhouse wasn't red at all, but a white one in very poor condition. I didn't know that. I don't know how many of you knew that. New paint, windows, and a roof were needed, but it has been quite an added attraction to the area and has seen much publicity statewide. I think you'll recall it's been in Kansas Magazine, and it was on the Kansas Magazine calendar one year. She began working with the John Stuart Currie family towards organizing the John Stuart Currie Museum at the time that she was president. This was formally dedicated in August 1977, long after her term as president, but she was very dedicated to the accomplishment of this project. At that time, the front room was used for selling antiques and some leather work. The next year, the Historical Society said, "The room is yours, do with it what you want." And did with it she did, didn't she? That began the living memorial to John Stuart Currie, which has continued since and has grown into our art guild, which we are so proud of. Then she finished by saying, I am sorry not to be able to be with you tonight, but physically I may be able to. My heart is still with you. I know she'd like to hear from you.
Thank you, Arlita. Next, I'd like to introduce Bill Rhodes. Bill has not only served as president, but also as a long-term building and ground supervisor.
Well, I wasn't a charter member. In fact, I never had given it much thought, the Historical Society much thought, until one day I was walking down the street kind of minding my own business, and Bill Leech got a hold of me and said, "I want to talk to you a minute." He said, "We got some buildings that I sure would like to get moved. I think you'd like to help us." So that's how I got started in the Historical Society, but I've enjoyed every bit of it. I'm going to give you some of the highlights from '73. Under the sponsorship of Bill Leech, the Society acquired around 150 enlargements of old-time street scenes, building and group pictures from towns within the county. The enlargements were made through the auspices of the Kansas State Historical Society, where copies are added to their files. The pictures are on display in the library and museum building. And there's also a bunch of them out here, and they're really priceless. Every time I see them, I enjoy them that much more. The foundation for the old Winchester jail was put in at a cost of $265. The jail was in good state of preservation with iron fixtures intact, and a much appreciated gift from the city of Winchester. Landscaping of the grounds at Old Jefferson County began in '73, following the recommendations of Kansas State Extension Forestry Department for the planting of flowering shrubs, additional trees on the site. Groupings of red buds, wild plum, fragrant sumac, flowering crabs were planted. Such shrubs such as bridal wreath were placed near the existing buildings, with yucca planted by the windmill. A few sycamore trees and Russian olives were also planted. And Betty Leech was very instrumental in seeing that this was all done. The most important achievement, I believe, in '73 was the completion of the courthouse bandstand replica. In August of '71, Harry Hampton of Oskaloosa made a memorial donation to the Society in the name of Amos Leech to start a fund for the express purpose of building a replica of the courthouse bandstand. And the bandstand was built at a cost of $6,500. And on October 14th, the Santa Fe Band of Topeka, conducted by Clarence M. Whitlow, which, if any of you know the Santa Fe Band, you know who Clarence Whitlow is, presented a dedication concert of 1.5 hours in the newly completed bandstand. In his welcoming speech, Bill Leech referred to the popularity of the cornet bands in towns around the country since 1870s. The first bandstand was built in 1883, and the second bandstand was built in 1906 at a cost of $125. During the 54 seasons, this bandstand was a setting for summer concerts and other community programs until May of 1960, when a tornado demolished it along with the 1867 courthouse. The bandstand currently has been enjoyed by all and is used for many events like concerts, weddings, picnics, etc. It was in '73 when the Union Block in Oskaloosa, 1892 Union Block, a brick building with a common front for 4 business, entered on the National Register of Historical Places with the National Park Service. It's listed among 138 other Kansas places of architectural and historical interest. It's an example of the Romanesque architecture in Kansas, commercial buildings. In the early years, the State Bank of Oskaloosa occupied the corner from 1892 to 1960. Mr. C.B. McClellan had a fancy dry goods store and clothing store, and Dr. A.G. Smith had his offices in it. That'll be 100 years old this next year. Also in 1973, William Leech became a member of the Board of Directors of the Kansas State Historical Society at their 89th annual meeting in Topeka. And our annual meeting that year was held in Nortonville in conjunction with their centennial celebration. Thank you.
Thank you, Bill. Next past president we'd like to recognize is the late Don Rice. Don served as vice president for 13 years. When Bill Leech had a heart attack in February 1976, Don finished out that term as president. He later served on the board of directors. Don and his wife Mildred were enthusiastic supporters of the society for many years. I'd like to introduce now John Bauer. John has served as president twice and has also edited the society newsletter for many years.
That's a good thing. You keep hold of that so I don't get my wooden foot tangled up in it. You always see me, I'm always scribbling in a notebook. So I had enough stuff I could probably talk for 20 minutes tonight, but I don't intend to. I reached back into looked through the notebook and just picked up a few things here and there to touch on. In 1977, it was March before the board really got down to business. Audine Kramer was going to make a roof over the church bed, and he has. There was a need for a money-making project. Mary Milanowski was to coordinate activities at Old Jefferson Town and sell some articles. She thought we had a super location. Mark Hunt, assistant director of the Kansas State Historical Society Museum in Topeka, spoke at a quarterly meeting in June. He said the way to get volunteers is to ask them. A band from the Kansas University Music Camp played July the 2nd at the bandstand. Bob Nichols ran a gun show. It was a good weekend. We made $375.40. Tom Gross was appointed archivist. Bound volumes of the Oskaloosa Independent were moved to Old Jefferson Town from the offices of the Register of Deeds. And if you remember having a part in that, it indicated in my notes that they were going to put them upstairs and over the store. That had been an awful job of carrying. I wonder if they ever got up there. Yes. The Tibbet building was ready in June, complete with a storefront and boardwalk. It was dedicated August 7th, as Mary related, to the John Stewart Currie Memorial Art Gallery. Nelle Manville had everything in hand. Members of the Currie family were in attendance, and I remember it was a great affair. Now, the annual meeting was held in Valley Falls with Frank Shrimplin in charge of the program and arrangements. 1978, February and March board meetings were canceled because of cold and snow. We were looking for an editor for a newsletter. At a quarterly meeting in April, which should have been in March except for the storm, Bill Leech displayed old maps of Jefferson County and told of the struggle between Free State and pro-slavery forces won by the Free State settlers. And I still remember that program, Bill. And he noted that the Free Staters won. Lincoln carried Oskaloosa by 66% vote in 1864. Use of the Tibbet building for art displays was approved in April. At the July meeting, it was reported that air conditioning had been installed and, quote, Nelle Manville's project seems to be going well. And it really did. She put her whole heart into it, so hardly that we appreciate the sentiment that went into that. We love her. She's a part of us forever. And she did a wonderful thing for us. The annual meeting was held at the State Grain Center at Lake Perry. Bill Leech again related some early history of Oskaloosa. And then it was my privilege to be president again in 1990. I'm going to cover that so I don't have to come back up again. More than $17,000 had been raised to move the John Stuart Currie home. The steering committee of Bill Rhodes, Bill Manville, Raymond Riley, and George Matthews was told to go ahead. By March, the house was on wheels, waiting for better weather. It was to be put on a site next to the kitchen restaurant, purchased from Hans and Petra Fjormans at a cost of $15,000. The Oskaloosa fire chief refused to burn the prairie pasture, and Bill Hanna mowed it. Karen Hetty became coordinator of volunteers. Tom Gross was appointed museum director. The Currie house was finally placed on the foundation. The story, Sam Peppard and his Prairie Wind Wagon, was donated to the society by author Celia Barker Luttridge. Profits from sale of the book go to the fund for the Currie home, and the book was sold well. The annual meeting was held at the barn, Valley Falls, with Raymond Powers, Executive Secretary of the Kansas State Historical Society, explaining the work of the State Society. Thank you. It's been a privilege to serve you.
Thank you, John. Betty, do you have some copies from Larry Barrett? Betty's going to read some notes from Larry Barrett, and will share his memories with the president.
Before I do that, Mike Tomlinson would like to have all the past presidents so he can take a picture immediately after the meeting. Larry couldn't be here, and he was certainly sorry. So I'll just read what he had prepared. I want to apologize for not being able to be in attendance this evening. My 2 years as president of the Historical Society were years of enjoyment. I especially enjoyed working with Jim Tenpenny in the food booth for the Indian summer days. Those of you who knew Jim understand one would never know what words of wisdom were coming out of Jim's mouth. Some of the projects during my tenure included the establishment of the post office for the Historical Society. Heaven knows what happened to the mail before that. The Green Thumb program was started, and the Society undertook to microfilm the county newspapers. Let's see, additional microfilms were purchased of county newspapers. Work continued on compilation of cemetery records thanks to the efforts of the Genealogical Society. The main accomplishment was the moving of the Nitzihelser house and preparing it for public display. There's no way that I can take credit for this project since Bill and Beverly Rhodes did most of the legwork in completing that endeavor. In looking back through some of my notes, it was interesting to see that on the 31st of September 1981, the total that had been spent on that house was $31,908.53. For a couple of months, some of us in the Historical Society began to wonder if old Jefferson town was haunted. Late one evening, I received a call from Raymond Riley. One could hear him shaking in his boots. I asked him what was going on. He stated he was working in the library, and all of a sudden, the lights went out and he could hear a noise in the basement. I told him I'd be over, but being a coward, I called the city police to go with me. Upon arriving, we couldn't find anything wrong. There were several times after that I'd receive a call that the lights were on that should not be, and each time, nothing could be found. Finally, it was discovered we had an unlocked window through which kids were entering, and once that window was locked, the little ghosts disappeared.
Thank you, Betty. The next presentation will be from Bill Rhodes as a memorial in honor of James Tenpenny.
Rosie gave me this. She prepared this and wanted me to read it this evening. And there's some of the highlights of Jim's term, which was in 1982. Jim was elected president for the 82 year at the annual dinner at Jeff West High School in Meriden. Other officers elected that year were Don Rice, Vice President, Marie Riley, Winchester Recording Secretary, Mary Moffett, Oskaloosa Corresponding Secretary, Elmer McCafferty, McLeod Treasurer. Directors were Raymond Riley, Bill Rhodes, Joanne Flower, Adelaide Moffett, Thomas Frisbee, and Dale Irwin. The newsletter editor was John Bauer, and archivist was Thomas Gross. The goal set for the year, priority was given to getting as many items on display in the museum as possible and get stored items all labeled. Some of the improvements were made that year. Edmund Chapel was reshingled, rental store repainted, paths were made to the buildings, outside lights were installed under the porch of the Tibbet, Kilgore, and Plum Grove buildings. Old Jefferson Town sign along the highway was redone. New signs identifying the buildings were put up. Signs identifying the types of trees were placed on the ground. And some of the donations that year was a gift of a John Stuart Currie painting, portrait, it's an early painting, portrait of a gypsy, which was given by his brother Eugene Currie. An old Currie rocking chair was refinished by Don Rice and is now shown in the John Stuart Currie room. A photograph of the Dewey family taken in front of the log cabin at Ozaki was given to the society and is displayed in the general store. Jim Palmberg, Topeka, gave the society an attractive display highlighting the blacksmithing art. Mr. Palmberg's father and grandfather were longtime blacksmithers in Meriden. A quilt donated by Verona McDonald is displayed on the wall of the museum. Green Thumb workers kept the church and school open most of the time that year, and the Craftfield manned the store and the Geological Society of the library. Bev Rhodes was in charge of the volunteers for the Nancy Helser House, and Nelle Manville, the arts program at the Currie Memorial Room. Quarterly meetings continued to be held throughout the year, and the meeting for September was held at McLeod in conjunction with their centennial celebration that year. I remember that very well. I think Kathleen Snook was in charge of that, and she did a beautiful job. The windmill was set. It came from the Dave McDonald place. Verona's name hasn't been brought up here tonight because she somehow wasn't ever a president, but she was like Nell. She was one that was very much in it from the beginning and donated much time, and she bought the schoolhouse and paid for most of having it redone. The windmill came from the McDonald place and was donated. I remember when that windmill was just kind of off the subject a little, but that was the last windmill I think that Oskaloosa Hardware sold, and it was put up. My dad and Dave McDonald put that windmill up. John Bauer edited the newsletter. He did a series on the Jefferson County Railroads, and I still have copies of those, and that was a very great series, John. The tract of land on Cherokee Street, the former site of the Nancy house, was sold for $5,500. Bids were obtained for printing the postcards for the old Jefferson Town pictures, and I think we've all seen those many times. Dick and Judy Edmonds formerly of Winchester, entertained the third and the fourth weekend. No, the third and the fourth. On the weekend, singing a concert and an ice cream social was held. Membership dues were increased to $5. We were talking about that tonight. I think they're going to go up again. With life membership being 10 times the annual dues. She concludes by saying, I know Jim enjoyed the year as president. He was very interested in the Historical Society in Old Jefferson Town and being an integral part of it. I know he also appreciated and enjoyed working with everyone in the association. I just thought I'd mention Jim and Rosie also gave the society the Tibbet Plum Grove buildings that are now the museum and the John Stewart Currie. And he was also very instrumental in getting the switchboard and telephones put in. He worked real hard on that. Jim went out to Abilene and purchased a old style switchboard and 3 telephones, and then there were some more that were donated, and that was one of his main projects. So I know we all miss Jim very much. Like I said a while ago, Jim had a way with words, and if you knew him, you loved him. Thanks a lot.
Thank you, Bill. I'd like this time again to call on John Bauer to speak on behalf of Charles Howe.
Real privilege for me to be up here to speak for Chuck Howe, who served as president of this society more years than any other except Bill and maybe one other. It's a real privilege, but it's a tough assignment. If I attempted to tell you all the things that he had done, we'd be here the rest of the evening. Bill Chuck carried this society up to the day he died. He was a Mr. Everything at Old Jefferson Town. He was coordinator, planner, repairman, caretaker, first on the job, last to leave, visitor's guide, promoter, pitchman, encourager, nag, leader, follower, visionary. If I'd have dug in the computer, I could have found a bunch more, and they would fit it. Over a period of years, he carried our program, just as he carried much of Oskaloosa in Jefferson County. He was a promoter. And anything he put his heart into, he did with his might. The project to move the boyhood home of John Stewart Currie to Old Jefferson Town and convert it into an art gallery with Chuck's baby. Under his leadership, the house was offered to us. It was accepted. More than $17,000 was raised in about 6 months' time to move it. And the land was bought to set it on. There were other things. I dug a few out of my notes after we got over here tonight. The windows were closed in the back of the museum room. Restrooms were put in the library building. Air conditioning went into the library. A coordinator was hired. The first one was Vicki Evans. The gas line was laid over to the library building. The prairie pasture was donated to the society by Bill and Betty Leech. And if you look out there, it's coming right along. A new boardwalk and steps between the Tibbet building and the research library were built. I remember one day Chuck and I went over to Perry and picked up a forge for the blacksmith shop from Helen Enos Dr. Barker and his wife Louise donated the statue of the Sam Pepper's wind wagon to be moved from their home in Oskaloosa to Old Jefferson Town. I don't think it finally got there until in my term of office. Because a lot of things wait on the weather and on donated help. But it's there. But rather than carry on, may I conclude my remarks by quoting from remarks I made at the memorial service held for Chuck at the Edmonds Chapel on April the 7th, 1990. We're not here this afternoon to conduct a wake. We're here to celebrate the life of a free spirit, Chuck Hall. Chuck lived to the full. Wherever something was going on for the good of the community, for the county, for somebody, whether Old Settlers Reunion, or promoting Jefferson County affairs, or sharing a picture with a family, or putting up the Christmas decorations on the courthouse lawn, or something at Old Jefferson Town, or even operating a TV camera during a fund drive for Channel 11 in Topeka. Chuck was in the middle of it, not as a spectator, but as a worker. Chuck was fun to be with, to work with. I've seen him provoked, but not vindictive. As president of the Historical Society, I will doubtless get a lot of credit, which I don't really deserve, for the improvements being made. They're the fruit of leadership and hard work on the part of Chuck Hall, our president the last 2 years, and man of all jobs for many years. Chuck did not have money to give, but he gave something better. He gave himself. Jesus said, if anyone would be great among you, let him be your servant. Chuck Hall was great, for the very reason that he was too busy serving to worry about who got credit for what was done. Chuck was taken for us before anyone was ready, but his work goes on, and his dreams are becoming reality. And as we bring these dreams to fruition, that'll be the finest memorial Chuck could ever have.
Thank you, John. The next speaker will be Raymond Riley. Raymond has served as president of the Historical Society and also as president of the Genealogical Society.
The story that Larry sent over about the incident at the research center, if any of you know me very well, the thing that would have upset me the most, upset me that night, I was listening to the World Series. Electricity went off. I think something that we are very fortunate here in our county that a lot of the other counties, in fact I know of no other county that has a situation like we have. We have 4 organizations that work so closely together. The Historical Society did a lot of things in the early years, but it's been multiplied many times by the Art Guild, the Craft Guild, and Genealogical Society. We're sending yesteryears to 450 people in, I think, 38 states now. So it's multiplied a lot, and these things I think we need to be proud of. Marie was an officer of this organization before I ever came. She drugged me along to that foggy night down to the Grange Hall there in, I guess it was 78 now. And I became involved a little bit. And there I was as president there in 87 or 86, 87 and 88. Chuck was a little reluctant to take the presidency that second year that he was going to be president, and I suggested that if he would take the presidency another year, I would be vice president that year, and I would go ahead and accept the presidency the next year. So I think I had a little bit to do with Chuck staying on as president that second year. Being involved with the Historical Society over the years, I had to go back to the minutes and see exactly what did happen during the years I was president. First meeting that I was president, we did accept the prairie pasture from the Leeches. We installed the 10-penny telephone system. The Art Guild was organized. We did have quite a few roofing problems at that time, and we put roofs on the Kilgore, Plum Grove, and Tibbet buildings during that period. I believe we did major restoration to the roof of the Reynolds store also. We restored those 2 buggies there. Chuck did a lot of the contact work there, but during that time we did restore the buggies. We updated the old Jefferson Town brochure. The Oskaloosa High School Alumni Association held their 100th anniversary meeting on Old Jefferson Town grounds. The Barker Wind Wagon was offered and accepted. There was an afternoon that Bruce and Roberta Currie came by our home and offered the Currie building to us, and then later the society accepted it conditionally upon earning the money to move it. Society's money was transferred to interest-bearing accounts during that period. We did build a ramp between the Kilgore and the Tibbet buildings during that period. We spent a lot of money during that time, but at no time did we have indebtedness during those 2 years. We've had a lot of fun with the Historical Society, and I think the more we get involved, the more we realize what they're doing. So, thank you.
Thank you, Raymond. I'll hit a little bit on this past year in the office, my office. My year in office has been a time of continuing improvements in the Currie home. We added electricity, or in the process of adding public restrooms. I think Audine said tonight he got the roof on the bathrooms and restrooms, which is kind of nice for this rain coming along. And that's been a major project. We celebrated the 100th year of the Edmonds Church, the dedication of the Sam Peppered Wind Wagon. We also helped with the well-attended Fall Arts Festival. I think they said we made close to $700 and some there, or they did. One of the best things to happen to us this year was the addition of a summer intern, Cheryl Bush. Cheryl came to us from Illinois. Am I right there? Right. And was a real help with organizing exhibits, preparing paperwork for grants. We appreciate her help. It has been a busy and rewarding year, and I know we all look forward to another one just like it. I'd like this time to introduce Karen Hetty, who has served as their coordinator of our summer volunteer program for the past 2 years and has done an excellent job. Karen is a past president of the Genealogical Society and is currently serving as librarian for that organization.
Thank you, Larry. I have the dubious honor of being last of the speakers, so I hope you bear with me a little longer. I'm to inspire you for the future of this society. And after hearing about the past 25 years, we have I have a lot of inspiring to do, because a lot has gone on, and to carry on in the fashion that has been started during the past 25 years, we need you. I'd like to read just a little clip that was in the Hayes Daily News in November last year, and it was headed Museums Important to Economy. During 1989, officials estimate Kansas museums brought in more tourists than the Kansas City Chiefs and the Kansas City Royals combined. Now, do you believe that, Raymond? Well, that's what it said. We must promote ourselves as much as the recreation or entertainment people do. And I think that is a very upbeat step for us to have in our minds, that we are part of a museum system that do bring a lot of people into Kansas, or at least have them stay here a little while longer. The future depends on you, depends on all of us. We have truly a county organization of volunteers, and I'm proud to represent the society and be a part of it. In my job as a coordinator of volunteers, I've met many of you. This past year, there were 170 different individuals, some members and some non-members, that came to Old Jefferson Town to keep the buildings open for these tourists. These individuals came from each of the 9 towns in our county, plus Lawrence, plus Topeka. They represented 10 of the extension home units, which I think Mary mentioned that they started doing this at the beginning, and we still have these groups of mainly women, and they bring their husbands too, and they love doing it at the buildings. We had 2 Girl Scout troops, 1 group of JCs, 1 sorority, and we had 1 museum aide whom I trained, and she served 35 hours. She was a high school student, and I'd love to work with high school students or junior high school students to train them in the same way. I would like to publish a list of those individuals. Some of them came once, and some of them came 3 or 4 times. And watch in the newsletters that will be coming out for those names. And when you see those people, thank them for coming to Old Jefferson Town. There's also some people whom I'd like to thank tonight that have donated material and or physical labor to do some moving, and those people or businesses are Meyer Lumber Company, Bill Bassett, and Larry Barrett, who also loaned us the use of his tent, Doug Campbell, Paul Flower, and Tom Gross. So when you see these people, give them an extra thank you for the material and physical labor that they donate to Old Jefferson Town and the Historical Society. I think this past summer we've had a record attendance at Old Jefferson Town, and I don't have official tallies, but I know that the slow days this year seem to be the top days last year. And I think a lot of this was due to the added programs with the intern that we had, which promoted added interest. The thing is, Cheryl's gone, and to keep that new life in our society, we need new people, people who haven't been active before. And I figured for the hours she put in, we need at least 4 people who can donate 10 hours a week. And I know that's probably not very likely, so that would mean 10 people who could donate 4 hours a week. And even that's maybe a little bit too much, so that would mean maybe 40 people who could donate an hour a week. And that's maybe realistic, and I hope that we can get many more individuals who can do that. In fact, you can start by helping next week. We have on Friday, next week, 7 p.m. at Old Jefferson Town, a workshop for accessioning some of the materials. Now, it seems to me a few years back, one of these other people said that they started, they were going to put all the items out in the museum and everything that was in storage, they were going to identify clearly. I haven't found those. We are in the process of numbering each of the items, each of the thousands of items, writing down the information about each item, where it came from, who gave it, what it looks like, age, condition, and hopefully we'll have a file that somebody comes in and says, I donated this particular item, where is it? Within 5 minutes or so, we can tell them without hemming and hawing. Anyway, this workshop on Friday, you don't have to know what you're doing to come. There's a few of us now that are pretty sure what we're doing, and we can pass on our knowledge that we learned from Cheryl this summer and continue. She did about 300 items with everything else she was doing, and I think the last workshop, well, she conducted 2, and I think we did maybe a dozen when she was helping us, and then I think we got 2 when she wasn't there. So we need lots of help. And these cards that you have at your places, a yellow card, you need to turn them over so the printing's showing to you. You also have a black pen, which is your keepsake to take home. It says Jefferson County Historical Society. This is a constant reminder. But you need to use it tonight. And we need to have you circle on here, accessioning workshop at the top. You can do that right now. That means that you would be glad to come and learn how to do it. Wouldn't have to be all the time. We have set them up for once a month. It would be the Friday following the week that the meeting falls in. The meetings are the second Thursday of each month. So the following Friday, we have an accessioning workshop at Old Jefferson Town. And besides the items that we have, we also have some photographs. Some of those that were collected early on, early 70s, and were enlarged and mounted by the Kansas State Historical Society. We have decided we need to know what we have, what kinds of pictures we have. So we are numbering them, and we're filling out information about each one, which will be in a file. So if you want to find something about a particular town, particular place, particular person, you should be able to find a picture or pictures without too much problem. Some of those pictures are not identified, and if you noticed on the table where they are displayed, there's a "where is this?" question. That's because we don't know. And if you can look at those pictures and identify them, or think you might know what it is, let somebody know who has a pencil so they can write it on the back, so that we have a better idea. Otherwise, it's just a picture of a building with some people in front of it. We'd much rather know where it was in the county and who may be outside of it. The second thing that you can help out is with hosting at Old Jefferson Town. And some of you I have called, and you've been able to come, and I really appreciate that. We have a great time. Some days you won't have very many people come and visit, and other days you will have. So if you want a quiet time, ask me for a quiet day. If you want it busy, I'll sign you up for a busy time. But whatever, circle that, host at Old Jefferson Town. Do that now. The next is to work at special events, and some of the things we've had were kid workshops, which were very successful, and we'd like to continue. And if you have a special one in mind when you circle work at special events, write them down afterwards. The festival, which is in the fall, which we had a real good time this year. The dinner, which is right here. I'm sure that they'll be needing some volunteers for next year's. Programs such as the Wind Wagon, dedication and program. It takes a lot of people, and I'm sure a lot of you know that it does. Some of you say, well, I just can't get out for one reason or another, and I can appreciate that. There's some things you might be able to do at home, which would be a super help, such as writing on grants, which is the next one. I don't know anything about writing on grants. Well, we didn't either, and we picked a mini grant, and we had some professional help from the Kansas level, and we went to it, and mainly it was just answering questions. You asked your question and you answer it. And we sent it in, and we were awarded the grant. So that's really a lift. And we have information on another grant possibility that is asked, or the deadline is in January, which is coming up fast. And right now we don't have anyone who has time to devote to answering questions on the grant form. So if you could do something like that, and you could do it at home, circle that. Help work on writing grants. Other things. If you know of a group, or if you are part of a group in one of the towns, you're a youth group, Rotary Club, Lions Club, Masons, and you'd like your group to volunteer in some manner of community service, it really is helpful when a group leader calls me and says, we'd like to sign up for such and such a day at Old Jefferson Town. It saves the Historical Society a lot of calling. Rather than 6 phone calls or more, I only have to correspond with 1. So that would be a great way to help. Also, something I hope many of you can come up with are some sheets. We have some showcases with our precious collections of pictures and printed materials and artifacts that are being faded fast by the sun. We're not there for, in the summertime, 5 days out of 7, and in the winter, none at all. But the sun still comes in the open windows, or unshaded windows. So if you have some sheets, old sheets, or a cloth, a large cloth of any type that could be draped over these showcases, and some of the clothing that we have hanging open, and some of the other things that we could cover up to preserve better. You could bring them to Old Jefferson Town, you could bring them to my house. Just let me know if you want me to pick them up even. So make sure you write down sheets and the other. Well, of course, you're not supposed to take these home. You're supposed to leave these here. Was there a place that they were to leave these?
The table as we go out.
On the table when you go out, or if you leave them right on the table where you are, that's fine too. But make sure that you put down your name, first and last, your address, rural, your box number, and your phone number. And the one last thing I would like to suggest that you could help with, if you can't get out especially, is phone calling in your own area. I make a lot of long distance calls that the Historical Society pays for, and if you could call, say if you live in Perry, and if you could call several people, I have names and phone numbers even, if you could call those people and ask them if they'd be willing to help at Old Jefferson Town, sign them up on a day and I could get back with you. And it would save in the long run my time, so I could do other things at Old Jefferson Town, and also save money on long distance calls. Plus, if there are several people coming from one area, it would save on gas for carpooling and carpooling. So I hope I have inspired you to circle all these things on the card and come on out to Old Jefferson Town to see what's there and help us put things in order for the future of the society. And before I sit down, I was asked to do something else. There's a beautiful bouquet arranged on the table in front of the podium here. And it was suggested that it be given to the people who, I'm not sure how to say it, but were instrumental in getting this all started. And that would be Betty and Bill Leech.
I want to say something. I had nothing to do with this at the beginning. And now when I am snowed under, I say it's all your fault.
Thanks, Karen. Now, Bill Rhodes lead us in singing Home on the Range.
Why don't we all stand up? I think we're all ready.
Thank you all. We thank you for coming and hope that you will take time to see the exhibits. Memberships are available for anyone that would like to join the Historical Society. We always welcome new faces. The dues went up from $5 to $10 for tomorrow morning. They will go up tomorrow morning. So now you can still get them for $5. I'm sorry. Thank you, Larry. And also, we have some picture postcards in the back. They're $1. There are new pictures and are real pretty. Have a safe trip home and good night, and thank you all for coming.